Let's take a look at how we can add actual textures to our materials. A wood grain to the legs, some sort of a leather onto the red upholstery, and maybe a plastic knob structure to the white shell. Before we continue, however, let's go to our file. So here you see I have my PC table chair blend file. And this is inside a folder called PC table chair. I have two folders inside this folder. One called references, just where I put reference images in. I do this a lot. And one folder with textures. Now these images you can download from the link, which is supplied through the text inside the first video description. And this folder, including the images, should be inside this folder here. Now, when I move this file to somewhere else, later Blender will not know, well, where are these images? I could relink, but ideally when we move files around a Blender file, we want to move everything with it, including the texture folders. So that's the reason why we have everything inside this one big folder. And this folder then I would move. There you see it has everything. For example, if I put this onto a jump drive, go to somewhere else and save, everything is kind of like contained inside this folder. Very good. So this about file and media management. Let's go back here to Blender. We would like to reorganize our environment or our interface. Right click on this border and join, and we join to the right. One more time, join areas to the bottom. The reason why we do this is because we have a pretty big vertical image. So right click, split vertical. Okay, one more time. Where is it? Come on. There it is. Maybe here. Very nice. So let's turn this off. In here, middle mouse button, press and hold. We can scroll around. Turn render on. Can turn this off, this off. So we just only see the rendering. Press T, so the toolbar is gone. Pretty cool. Now, so we just kind of like only see maybe what the rendering later would be. And now in this view, we can adjust everything one more time. Right click, split horizontal. And there we are. Okay, and we do this here one more time. Vertical there, and then we will change this viewport into the UV image editor. And here we will set this to shader editor. Okay. Don't worry, I will run you very slowly through what we're going to do. We will start with the upholstered part. We would like this to render not like a super high glossy plastic, but actually more like some sort of a faux leather. So we need some sort of a structure on it. We know when we go to the surface properties, we have here something for reflectivity and we have something for roughness. But with the roughness, we can only make this uniformly rough or smooth. But we want to see grooves, kind of like the structure of, let's say, a leather material. So how do we do this? Here you see on the right side, this is a vertical list, and inside the shader editor, this is what's called a node list. Think about nodes like a flowchart. So I'm honest, the beginning, what we're going to do will sound like a foreign language. Don't worry, it's always the same steps, you will see it is very, very repetitive. So this principled Bsdf, this is kind of like a shader or material that can create various outcomes, aka simulate various types of materials, plastic, glass, wood, etc. You see, we have here exactly the same settings. When I go to the right side and adjust it, or the left side, it is exactly the same. So this, the view here will be very different. Okay, what does view mean? Okay, let's do it. So we would like to have a leather material show up on here. Again, now we have here this leather. It's black and white. It's called bump. Bump because this image will be used to simulate the structure. Then let's go back to Blender. We will add into here this image. So we go add texture. We would like to load this as an image. Click, click, go to open. There is my folder, and here is the leather bump. Open. Okay, well, nothing happened. Well, we just only imported, or we just created a texture node which has an output of color, but we didn't associate this image to anything. Now we could say left mouse button, click and drag, use this color, and use this as the object color. You see this, wait, update it for a moment, and there is now the material. Somewhat successful, not quite. It's okay. But you see now, when we drag this one out, then this uniform color is being used. When I drag this one in here, then whatever we loaded into this image node, the color output will be used here for the color input. Okay, very good. Now we would like this to stretch better over it. Now let me introduce something that is called UV mapping. And I guess the easiest way to explain what UV mapping is, think about a cardboard box. When we want to make a cardboard box, we have to cut out of cardboard a template, and then we fold it and we put it into a three-dimensional object or composition. UV mapping is the opposite. We take a three-dimensional mesh and we flatten it, and then we put that onto an image. Okay, so here we have the UV editor. Think about also UV as X and Y, a two-dimensional coordinate system. I can click onto here because I have the leather material already loaded. There it is. Then with this one selected, I go into edit mode, press A, and yeah, we see something here. You see there are some points, but this definitely does not represent what we see here. Okay, so in this view, go to UV and then say unwrap. Now think about unwrap as the process. You have a cardboard box and we cut open all the edges where we glued it together, and we unfold it back into a flat template. There. Here, let's press A, and then you see there is actually our piece. Now you only see half, and that is because we actually only indeed have half of an object. Not because we have here a mirror modifier. And if we take a look on the left side, you noticed, oh, now we see the texture everywhere. Okay, now UV mapping. What is this doing? Okay. This is our center line. So this runs right across there. So we zoom in here a little bit, press T, and then we have the standard tools. And now do something like this. We move this to the right. Pay attention to what's happening in our rendering. You see? So we're moving how this image is being mapped onto there. Let's select this image there. Sorry, this face. So something here. So here, this part of the image, this is this geometry, this part of the image will be mapped onto the geometry. So it shows up. Here you see this is a very small, tiny strip. There's the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So let's press A. And then here we go and select, go to move, select these 2 points. And then we move this left and right. In my case, I move this to the right. You see what's happening? So let me explain to you. You see now here we have a very tiny piece of my image, and that is being stretched over the whole image, which is why this looks very stretched. Or compressed, actually. We can do this the opposite way. No, I'm adding much more to it. Okay, I hope you start slowly getting an idea what this UV mapping actually is doing. Whenever we mess this up too much, we can simply go unwrap or go to the menu there. Very good. We could, for example, try something out and select these points SX and 0 to have a nice lined up effect. Okay. No. In our case, we will do this rather basic. Let's go one more time. Simply unwrap. Okay. There's one additional thing what I would like to do now to explain this UV mapping a little bit more. This might be confusing at the beginning, but it is rather very simple. We go inside the UV editor to image and new. And then we call this UV test. And then generate type UV grid. Click OK. And there you see now this UV grid. Here, let's switch this from leather bump to UV test. Okay, better. Now go to here, A, move this over. Now maybe this is a tick easier to see. Okay. So here we have these 2 points. This is actually right there and there. You also can see how we have here slight triangular piece, and there it is. Now pay attention to what happens when we move this over. Nicely on this edge. You see? That's cleaned up. This point, we will move right over this red edge. Hold on 1 second, let me zoom in here more. Is there, okay. So there is the red edge. So this point, we will move to there. And you see, there we're getting this edge. And maybe here, bring this over, there. Okay, no? I hope this starts to slowly show you this whole process of UV unwrapping and mapping, because again, everything under this flat geometry that image will be mapped onto the face here. And this is then basically how we see this right there. If I select this and distort my map, let's say here I move this down, there you can see how the distortion takes place. Or I compress it this way. Now you can see the rectangles have different sizes, so the texture will be stretched. That's called or this cleaning this up, that is called kind of like changing the, like de-stressing or relaxing our UV map. UV map? What is UV map? When we go down here to the triangle, so for the mesh, because we're texturing all the faces, UV map, there it is. If I delete this, whoop, it's all gone. Not a big deal. I can just rebuild it. There it is. Cool, no? Okay. Last thing that is important to mention, let me hide all this, and then I will go to object mode, select my shell, H, hide it, go back to here, go to this view in edit mode. Okay, and I will just select these faces, U and unwrap. You see I get this result, A, U and unwrap, then I get this result. So what I'm trying to show is here at the center we have a really nice linear line. No, that's or aligned line. Here we do not. So we can actually, what I showed before, select all these points, S, X, and 0, and scale this together. But then I have to make sure that nothing here is kind of distorted. For the moment, this is okay. This gets a little bit bigger here, so maybe these points. That's maybe a good example. You see that this is actually horizontal, or these are parallel. So this is not parallel to here, so maybe we move this up a little bit. There. Okay. And this is all in a line. So maybe here, bring this over to there. I don't want to go into this too much more, but I hope that with these rectangles, you start understanding what this relaxing UV map means. Because this way then we can de-stress everything. Here, these points, maybe we move up. Oh, look at that. You see how we have a kind of like a V, and that's because we have more pixels along here than there. But actually, this mesh is more like a rectangle. Here, this is not a rectangle. There. Okay, very good. No, because we later put onto there a leather texture, it doesn't matter as much. So, okay, good enough for this at the moment. This UV map, basically I only used to make sure that everything looks good. I would like to keep this UV map, so I click on this heart icon. Sorry, no, here, this heart icon. So now this image will be used. I will go back to leather and switch this here back to leather. There we are. Okay. Now, let's continue. This is actually kind of big. So one very easy trick is in here I select this this mesh, and then I press S to scale. So when I make it smaller, you see less pixels from this image is being used to be mapped onto the image. If I do it the opposite way, So I make this bigger. Bring this over to there. Yeah, then actually this starts to show more of my texture on it. So this is one way, very quick and dirty to do. Another is also the following. We go add input texture, coordinate, add vector mapping. Very good. So we created a UV coordinate system via this UV unwrapping. So here we could tell the software use UV. Also, everything what I'm showing you here is standard in all 3D render programs. It's just a standard technology terminology. So UV you find in every program. Then here for mapping, we drag this one to there. Here we have a scale, and then this is the mapping, and we put this to there. Okay, what did we just do? We basically told the software use the UV mapping, something we will do a lot when we work with textures. We put this into the vector for mapping. The mapping is basically the tool where we can move something around, rotate something, or we can also scale something there. So click left mouse button, drag down, and then type in a number, and it does it actually for all at the same time. Pretty cool. Okay. So, and then basically with this mapping, it says scale 10. So we scale this texture down by 10 times. We put this into the how this image should be scaled, projected, and then this image is being put into the cutter. Okay. Again, this is a little bit abstract at the beginning, but we covered pretty much everything about UV mapping to kind of like 80%. There isn't really that much more that you need to know. Maybe for the mirroring, let's go to object mode. We see there's a little bit of an issue there. Let's go to data. What about we turn this on? Yeah, so we can kind of like mirror it. So it mirrors it so that basically the left and right side are not necessarily 100% the same. So we don't get this silly seam here. Okay. So we also now have the texture done, but we want this not to be used for the color. We want this to be used for the structure. Okay, left mouse button click, move this all to there. Then left mouse button click, drag this out. Now what we will do is we need to tell the software to use this image for the bump. Bump mapping or the relief is the technique via highlights and shadows to simulate that there is a three-dimensional material, while it actually in our software is totally flat. So we go add, vector, and bump. Put this to here. Color goes into height, and normal goes into normal. Think about normal as up and down direction, the vector. Whoa, look at this. That's kind of cool. So you see when we change this, we see actually the structure on our surface. When we zoom in, however, we see this is totally fake. This is just an illusion. We have something called distance. If we set this to 0, well, it's gone. Period 0, period 001. Oh, better. Period 0001. Oh, it's getting actually somewhere. Maybe a 5. Okay. It looks a little bit as the grooves are actually coming up. They should go in. So let's click this invert. That flips the image. Oh, look at that. There is our leather. How beautiful is this? There you see how this looks more hammered, and then here this looks more like the folds are going into the material. Yeah, very nice, no? So if we set this to 0 or specular to 0, no, this is basically what I mean. This is a black and white highlight and shadow solution trick. It's really totally flat. Now we can see the pixels. But from a distance, actually, this looks very sufficient. We cannot model these pores. It would be insane. So we just render it via a trick. Now we can play with how much reflectivity do we want and how much in additional roughness do we want. Now it doesn't need to be 0 only because we have a bump mapping. Maybe this is a tick too big. Yeah, so now this looks really like a vinyl. Maybe that was okay. Very good. Let's go to the camera view. Yeah, no, so this type of a material you also only see where you have light and reflection going on. For example, from here, because I see the light reflecting, I see this very nicely on the surface. When there's nothing to reflect, it's harder really to see. Okay, very good. So this is kind of like a very basic fake leather material.